Hey Google, are you a Kaylon threat?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Sure.
Hey Hulu, renew the Orville.
Bum, 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 ba-da-dum. Time for Orville Season 3 reviews. Well, my friends, we're back at it once again. The Orville New Horizons, otherwise known as Season 3, all the way up to Episode 7 already. We are fast approaching the end of the season, and I just hope we get that renewal notice from Hulu sooner rather than later. I suspect if we are to get any news, it will be at the Comic-Con in San Diego coming up shortly, so holding my breath, crossing my fingers that we'll get at least 2 more seasons announced at that time. If you're new here, going to be going over this latest episode. There will be spoilers, so duck out now if that's not your thing. If you don't care or you've already seen the episode, stick with it because here we go. Season 3, New Horizons, Episode 7, From Unknown Graves. And this one kicks off. It's clearly supposed to be setting up that feeling from a nice 50s, early 60s nuclear family, father coming home from work. Hey, buddy pal, I brought my briefcase and let's go play catch in the backyard, that sort of thing. In a nice alien aesthetic. I do want to stress this is a fairly cold open. We get no sort of bearings as to what's going on or who these people are. It's a nice touch. I do like how it kicks off. This guy here sees his father's coming home, super excited. And in the very next scene, we see that his father has brought the family some sort of gift, some sort of large box that's going to contain something amazing for them. They're all super excited. The wife, at least I'm assuming she's a wife, whatever this sort of family unit is here, they're all very, very excited. Before I get to the box, I do want to point out that I like the alien design type features throughout this setting. Everything's ovular. It's very cool. I do like the alienness of the aesthetics here. Going along, they're about to open this box, and who should we discover inside when they open this box? That's right, Robin Williams' Bicentennial Man is inside this box, and he is going to be the robot, the android, the helper that's going to help these sorry, I was watching the wrong show. Actually, what was inside the box is this fella here. It's dun dun dun, as you all know from watching the show, a Kaylon. What have we learned so far? Not very much, but you want to be careful when you're opening boxes, I suppose, because there could be a deadly killing machine that's going to eradicate all organic life forms inside, so you might want to read the label before doing that. And I'm going to say something right now before I move on. This sort of flashback, for lack of a better term, scene is going to be kind of playing throughout the episode. And one of the things that happens in this episode are possibly 5 different plots going on. They're all interwoven and kind of mixed together. Only 2 of them really seem to be the main plot. There's a lot of character work and a lot of character relationships being woven throughout the episode as well. I like them all. For the most part, they're all well done. They're all well integrated. And because this is like an hour and 14-minute episode, I think, just reaching that length of a full motion picture length movie. They had a lot of time to work with this episode, a lot of stories they could interweave, and as I'm going to get to in a few moments, a couple of scenes which, had this been back on broadcast television on Fox or whatever your equivalent is in your country, I don't think they would have had time to do that. So by stretching this out, they're not only allowed to add longer battles, more sci-fi effects, they're also able to draw scenes out for much longer than they would have been able to on broadcast television. And I think that is a hell of a big bonus that you can get when you go to streaming. So right here, we cut to one of our plots. I'm going to call this the C and the D plot. And you're about to find out why I give it those letters. Inside this bed, there's some sort of wrestling match going on? Not really sure. Anyways, we're about to discover who is truly inside this bed, and who could it be now? Well, it is John and Tala. That is right. They have officially consummated the relationship we've seen burgeoning in the last couple episodes of this season. That's right. They're together. I ship this. I don't like the fact that I just said I ship something. The only ships I should ever be mentioning are the beautiful spaceships from Star Trek, the Orville, Star Wars, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and strike that from the record, but leave it in this video so you can all hold me accountable for being a garbage human being. Anyways, they are just getting it on, and one of the things that you probably remember if you're a fan of the show, Tala being a Zelan was raised on a super high gravity world. John being a peak specimen of a human being, obviously, is just a normal mortal being. So it's basically like he's hooking up with the Hulk or something like that, and that's not going well for him. That will not bode well for him because she's breaking him apart. She's basically destroying the man. He's been sneaking down to sickbay after their encounters, broken arms, broken legs, punctured spleen, broken pelvis, all sorts of severe injuries. And he's going to Claire and lying to her, basically saying he's doing some sort of a holodeck simulation. Sorry, environmental simulator. This is the Orville. It's legally distinct from a Star Trek holodeck. And he's doing a training program where it's just extra violent and he's getting these injuries through that, sneaking around so that he can be with his lovely, lovely Tala Kiali. One thing I want to point out, still not a fan that they're not showing her ear. I digress. One of the other plots going on this episode is Mark Jackson, as Isaac, is spending a lot of time in his holographic form on these dates in the environmental simulator with Claire. Apparently I don't know why this restaurant is so important to them, but this seems to be where they always come back to have their dates, so it must hold some sort of emotional meaning for at least Claire. Probably not Isaac. It's wonderful to get to see Mark act in his normal visage, whatever you want to call it. So I do like that he's allowed to branch out in this sci-fi way. That's one of the other plots going on. She's having this discussion with him, basically saying, I like you, Isaac. Maybe we'll get back together officially, but the only thing is I might need more. I might need a little more than your cold, emotionless robotness. I might need a little compassion, a little empathy. And hold on to your hats because that might come back into play later. Now, I don't know if I want to call this the A plot or if I want to call the Kaylon plot the A plot. I guess they can be co-main plots. These are the Genesi. They are a female-run matriarchal society. Basically, I just said female-run twice in two different fancy ways, so kudos from me. And the plot here is we are trying to get them in a tenuous alliance, at least help out the Union against the Kaylon threat. Obviously, things have gone a bit south with the Krill, and things are not on the best foot with the Mocklins after the whole transgender situation with Topa. So, who knows where things lie, but us organics really do need to band together. The problem is, this race, not a big fan of males at all. Males are, I don't even want to say second-class citizens, they're less than that. They're basically stupid breeding stock that are, not even allowed to be educated, as we learn later on. So in order to facilitate negotiations, they come up with this plan, which I think is a real dumb plan, but it harkens back to the early days of this show where we kind of have goofier, slightly less realistic plans going on, at least more Looney Tunes type plans than you would get in something like Star Trek. And I think if you go into it looking at it through that lens, the plan isn't really that bad because it facilitates a fun story. So what they're doing is they're going to basically only have the women in charge. They swap uniforms, they swap ranks. Ed and Gordon here are basically lowly servants on the ship. Tala is going to be second in command under Kelly. So those are the two leaders. And then you've got some other swapperoos going on, like Bortus is a subservient person, but they never really mention what he does. He's just kind of in the background for a couple comedic lines. And who else do we have? Charlie Burke is kind of promoted to chief engineer, things like that. It was fun. This is a very extended scene here, which, as I hearken back to earlier in my review, I mentioned this sort of extended scene probably wouldn't have flown if this was still on 44-minute network TV length. And it's a very, very Family Guy-esque type of gag, I suppose, where Gordon and Ed here have to carry their luggage and they're having troubles with it. It's super heavy. They trip. It's a fun scene. For a lot of the people complaining that the Orville has gone too serious this season, I want to stress that this episode in particular brings back a lot of those comedic elements and one-ups them in some circumstances. But it also ties in a very, very, very serious and possibly emotional main plot at the same time. So it's really doing the best of both worlds. And I think that has partly to do with the fact that it's a extended length episode. This is basically the length of 2 episodes in the original broadcast length. It's an hour and 14 minutes, I think. If we were back in the broadcast TV days, it would probably have to be 2 44-minute episodes. And in those 44-minute episodes, you would also have to show the intro twice, the ending credits twice. So it would probably be more like 38 minutes of actual stuff. Fun scene. I recommend you go and watch it. A couple of the other fun scenes are with Bortus and Gordon, just quick comments, snarky lines. Then here comes the other main plot. They detect some sort of energy readings from a nearby planet. They decide to go down and investigate since the men are pretty much doing nothing anyways. They send down the men to check it out, and what do they find there? Well, first we get another flashback. I'm just going to show a couple of these and not go through all of them. We spend more time with this family. They're getting to know their Kaylon, which is called a K1. It's, in essence, their slave. It's doing the cooking, it's doing the cleaning, it's basically doing all those things you as a individual don't want to do yourself. It's given no agency of its own. It doesn't even have it's basically told you're only to speak when spoken to. It asks them, why can't I go to school? Why can't I do? And they're basically like, no, shut up. Go stand in the corner. You're just a tool. You're not an actual living thing. You're just a tool for our amusement and our help. So go shut up and do your job. Obviously, knowing that this is a Kaylon, that's not going to work out too well. Intercut with that, we discover the energy readings on the planet are also a Kaylon. Something I want to bring up now. The alternate timeline theory has gained and lost credence this season. We've seen earlier that one of the points of contention for this being an alternate timeline was raised, that the uniforms were different. Well, we saw in the Tale of Two Topas episode, the uniforms in the earlier recording from season 1 were wearing the older style uniforms. So we know for a fact the uniforms changed at some point. Here, we see that the original model Kaylons and the new model Kaylons still look exactly the same. So they didn't change between season 2 and 3. They have always looked this way. The only other possibility I can think of is when the Kaylon decided to kind of try and act like they were friendly with us. They took off some of their threatening looking armor to look more goofy and more docile. And then once we officially went to war with them, they suited back up into their full military armor. I don't know. It's not explained, but I just do want to point that out because it's not necessarily a discrepancy in the timeline like a lot of people are supposing. There could be a reasoning, there could be an answer, but I digress. So obviously our crew not very enthused to find a Kaylon, but he decides to tell them, ho, 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 I'm not a threat. I'm actually a good Kaylon. I've got emotions. I've got empathy. I'm just here to be your friend. That's all I want to do. Just want to be your friend, pal. And this is the scientist here. For the life of me, I just forgot her name. It's Dr. Visser or something along those lines. And this Kaylon is Timmy. And basically what's going on is he was not as I first thought, an original Kaylon who had been left in this chamber. He was a Kaylon that had been part of the identity attack. Something had happened, crashed, or was deactivated for some reason. And she, with her father's help, has been tinkering around with him, found some sort of components in the head, was able to mess around with some sort of sci-fi techie stuff. And she was able to establish empathy. She was able to give him basically emotions. So I'm going to just call it the Kaylon version of an emotions chip. He feels bad. He feels remorse. He is not on board with the Kaylons, or so he says. He thinks what they did was horrible. You can't judge all organics based on the crappy history they had with their builders. And he would like to help. They bring him up to the Orville. They, do some studies. They contact the Admiralty. They're like, well, if he is serious, this could be the missing piece to what we need to find peace. So we're going to bring him in. We're going to hopefully be able to do something with this. My thoughts are maybe they're going to be able to, install a Trojan horse into the Kaylon collective and spread that empathy for everyone. Although that is in essence turning the Kaylon into the Picard Season 2 Borg, where all they do is need a hug. So I don't know if I like that either. So now they're back on the ship. Our Isaac has a conversation with this guy, and it's a very interesting conversation because this is a very emotional, empathetic Kaylon. Isaac isn't, but Isaac also understands the fact that he should be, and he understands the logic and the underlying meaning behind feeling that. He doesn't also believe in the Kaylon. He also understands life is important and life is valuable, and he has friends and relationships. So it's kind of an interesting thing because he's understanding these concepts, but he's not understanding the underlying feelings associated with them. So I would argue he's equally as aware, just in another sort of way of being. So that's that plot. Then we find out this guy here, he's the head of the company that either created the Kaylons or at least turned them into the slaves that they are. And one of his subordinates comes in and says, we've got some real problems here. We're basically finding out that some of these units are becoming self-aware. They're going on their own. They're doing things that are adverse to our people. And we need to stop this. We need to basically issue a recall. And he's like, no. Actually, I knew this was going to happen, but whatever. It doesn't matter because I've created this pain stick. You just plug it in and you can create all sorts of pain to keep these slaves in line. Ha 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 ha! Money. Get it? Capitalism, guys. So this is a terrible, terrible person, obviously, who started things. And as we're shown throughout the flashbacks, the people, even though they were supposed to be a fun, happy family, also mistreated the hell out of their Kaylon. So we are not shown, outside of his subordinate, maybe any of the biological Kaylons treating themselves, each other, or the Kaylon artificials in any sort of good capacity. So now we can understand what happened and why the Kaylon became so averse to organic life forms. Then we cut back to the ship, and this is when things finally fall apart during a dinner. The leader of the Janai people here, she decides that she wants to take Ed, being a male and having no agency of his own, to mate with her. She's basically like, oh no, he doesn't belong to anyone. Okay, I claim him. Crap hits the fan right now, and we have to tell them about our ruse. That's right. Males and females are actually equal within the union, blah, 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 blah. Kelly's not the captain. Ed is, so things go south. Another couple of funny lines here. Obviously, Mocklins are the polar opposite because they are male-centric. To the point where they don't even allow females to exist within their society. So these two cultures clash 100%. There is no common ground between them at all. And there's another scene when it's off screen. I don't even think you see Gordon when it happens. And she's like, well, I'm going to claim Ed. I'm going to go, mate with him. And he seems appalled. But then you just hear off screen, Gordon's like, I'll do it. Again, some of that humor people are claiming has not been in this season. Just a little more subtle now. Then we get to the final part of the flashback, this time being narrated by Timmy. And we see that the Kaylon eventually outfitted themselves with weaponry. I choose to believe this is sort of a Amazon Alexa come to life situation. So the Kaylon were servants. I'm assuming some of them had an upgrade package for home defense. So some of them were possibly equipped with weaponry. When the Kaylon became sentient and started taking over everything, the Alexa version of them connected to their version of Amazon simply put in an order to ship the weapons upgrade package to every single artificial Kaylon on the planet. They all upgraded themselves with weapons and en masse just slaughtered their entire planet. I don't know why I got an accent there. We see here that boom, boom, the head guns shot into the head of the organic Kaylon. And we actually see a couple of scenes ago, the children very, very mistreating the Kaylon artificial. And the children were not spared either. We didn't see such graphic detail as we did with the adults, but we did see the children were also shot. So they weren't exactly leaning out of the destruction. This is a funny and tragic scene all rolled into one. This is basically John and Tala breaking up. He can't survive her. They love each other. Both of them admit that they love each other. They're going to miss each other, but this can't continue. John is literally going to die. It's a very, very slow reveal as they, start on Tala crying. And then as they pan out, we see that he's basically busted to a pulp. And it's an emotional scene played over a hilariously funny scene. I do like that dichotomy. It worked for me. I don't like the fact that they broke up. I don't think they're going to stay broken up. I think John, being the brilliant scientist, the brilliant engineer he is, will at some point be able to concoct a way to be with Tala, whether or not that be a physical creation or some sort of way to transfer his mind into an artificial body. I don't know what they're going to go with, but I do believe, especially if we get another season, they will find a way to make this work. So I don't think that's completely over. Obviously, the female aliens, not too happy with us. They're going to leave. They're going to storm off, say we can never have relations. Kelly decides to be honest with them now, tell them about Ed and her history, about their marriage, about how she cheated on Ed, which is the reverse of their culture, where the women are allowed to sleep with whoever they want. The men are required to be completely faithful. She basically says, well, if I can do this and Ed can still trust me, maybe we can form a common ground, especially with the Kaylon threat out there. So, while the entire plan of trying to fool them was just cockeyed and didn't make any sense to begin with, I think this was at least a slightly interesting way to try and salvage things, even though the whole thing didn't seem like it would work whatsoever. But it made for a fun episode, so at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and complain about something that's just entertaining and fun to watch. There were logic leaps, there were plans that didn't make sense, but it all boiled down to a fun story with some highs, some lows, and the plan didn't make sense. I'm actually okay with that. I can see past that. A lot of people maybe not, but for me, I thought it was just a very, very character-heavy episode. And then we get the final piece of our puzzle here. Isaac has gone through with the emotion transference from Timeh, and well, now he's got the full gamut of emotions. This was a very, very powerful scene here. He gets to, for the first time, Mark Jackson in this show has gotten the chance to act with his full range of acting, abilities. He's not just this emotionless robot. He gets to be happy, sad, experience, all in about 4 or 5 minutes. He goes through the whole range of emotions. He mentioned how Ty looked up to him, needing a father, needing love, needing, whatever. And all he could do was just stare down at him with his cold, emotionless face. So they have this very, very touching scene. Isaac's going through a lot in it. They're dancing, and basically what happens is he just suddenly loses the emotion. Suddenly he's back to normal. He's like, I no longer have emotions. And it is a jarring scene. It's very well done. And then what they go on to discover is, because Isaac is I don't even know if he's second generation, but he is not an original Kaylon. He is a Kaylon built by other Kaylon, meaning they did not create him with the same mental shenanigans the original Kaylon had. So the process to give him these emotions was temporary, and they could keep doing it again and again and again, but his neural pathways would adapt, and every single time, after a short period of time, his emotions would fizzle out. The scientist lady tells him that you've got 2 choices. I can give them to you permanently. You can have emotions permanently, but in order to do this, I will have to do some major hard drive replacements in your head, which will, in essence, cause you to disappear, because everything you are, everything you've learned, all of your memories, everything at all is going to be deleted. So you'll be starting over as a blank slate. Claire basically comes to him and is like, well, so I have to choose between your heart or your soul. I can't do that, because even if you'll have emotions, I fell in love with you, and you won't be you if everything you are is deleted. If Claire had decided otherwise, I don't think I'd like Claire anymore. So that's where we're leaving it now. We are leaving it with our normal Isaac. However, we know there is a possibility for him to become more, and I think there is a little bit of that still left in him. I think there might still be a spark of the emotional Isaac somewhere deep down inside. Then we get this scene where Charlie does seem to have partially put her hatred for Isaac and her hatred for the Kaylon behind her after discovering what the Kaylon had done, and specifically after coming to know who Isaac is as an individual and getting to more understand the way that he thinks and the way he acts, because he isn't what she thought. Did we learn who Charlie Burke truly is this episode? No, we don't have much more on that front. So I still think my theory, and that I posted a whole video about, if you haven't watched that, you could do so, that she is a Kaylon operative, however she is unaware of this. I still think that's coming back into play later on this season. So the episode as a whole, a very fun episode from start to finish with some very emotional moments. We finally got the flashback of how the Kaylon came to be. So there's a lot of story elements. There's a lot of character elements. Not a whole lot of galaxy ending stakes. This is a very character-driven episode where we get to learn a lot about our characters, especially some romantic parts of some of our characters. And we get to learn a little more about the background of one of the main antagonists of the show. I do like that. It was a little simplified. I do like some of the ambiguity of not knowing the history, but they did it in a fun way. I enjoyed the way they did it. And it was basically what we anticipated the whole time. And it does lend a bit of sympathy to these characters we've only seen as cold, dead killing machines for the most part. Another solid episode. Can't believe we've only got 3 more to go. But until next time, go out there, watch the Orville, do all you can, because we need this show to get renewed. Let me know what you think about it. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, all those fun things. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you.